of the excited state dynamics, particularly energy and electron transfer processes in hybrid nanostructures based on various sensitizing dyes and semiconductor systems. It is simply a pleasure to read his research papers, even on the most complex phenomena. As a matter of fact, Prashant has an amazing ability to cherry pick research problems which are far ahead of his times. His scientific credentials are indeed outstanding. If you just search Google Scholar, which is particularly popular in India because it is free, with his name, you'll find more than 450 research papers, 94,000 citations, and H index of 158. He doesn't like, however, Scholar Google H index. He always refers to Web of Science, but still, the contribution is 71,000 citations, and H index is 138. There also, uh, because in India it is free, probably everybody goes to Scholar Google for such searches. No wonder Thomson Reuters has featured him as one of the most cited researchers for every year from 2014 to 2020 for last 6 years. Is the most cited researchers, one of the most cited researchers. On the top of all such accomplishments, student-centric issues, for example, how to write papers, etc., are close to his heart. That may be the reason why he has chosen the topic PhD and beyond, laying the foundation for successful career, to speak on today. May I now request Professor Prashant to deliver his talk. Professor Prashant, please.
Okay. Uh, Good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending upon which part the world. First of all, thank you, Professor Amlanekar, Professor Chaskar, Professor Abhyankar, Professor Parke, and also Vice Chancellor for the opportunity to speak with you today. And as Dr. Amlanekar
You can call me
mentioned,
Dinesh. Dinesh is okay.
Okay. Mentioned, this is more geared toward younger audience. I have kept in mind the new students who are going to join PhD program or who are in the PhD program, and also wondering how to make this as a successful journey. Again, there is a disclaimer in the bottom which says that these are my views, and I may be not right in every point. So you have to exercise your own judgment. You can discuss with others. So make sure that these are not like rules or anything. This is just, I'm sharing my own experience with you people. Okay, the background is the campus. Right now it is full of snow, but you can see here, as Dr. Amranikar mentioned, I come from a very small village in India, and we have nice green mountains and nice beaches, and we still have unpaved roads in the village where we go. So I love to be there because it's really relaxing, very clean air. So people who have not left Pune or any big cities, I suggest you to go into the countryside and spend at least a week. You will be much more refreshed. And this is one thing I missed. I used to go at least twice or three times a year, and it's been more than a year I couldn't go. So as I mentioned, I joined Notre Dame in '83, and then on. This is the autobiography he mentioned earlier. And one of the things I always want to mention is, like many of our senior colleagues here, uh, we grew up with no TVs, no electronic gadgets. In fact, getting a toy was a big reward. So most of the time we spent with our friends on the fields playing games. There were no tuition classes, so I never took any tuition classes. So it was not considered as a good thing. So if you are really weak in your studies, you took the tuition. But most of the time we spent playing, and we designed our things. I used to have a lot of vendors, so I spent time in there watching, learning. So these were, I feel that initial uh, thing that sort of spark in you of creativity, trying to do these things. So just to give you how you can draw the inspiration in you from your childhood. Okay, before I start, I want to let you know that uh, you need to ask two things, questions, if you ever have to get into a PhD or you are in PhD. One thing is, it is a common playing field across the world now when you are doing a research. Uh, there is nothing like one place is better than the other. You have all the facilities all around the world. Uh, so that makes additional pressure on you when doing research. And the two important questions you have to keep in your mind all the time: what should I do to stay ahead of competition? Any research you take now, there are tens to hundreds people working in that area. How can I stay ahead of competition? I don't want to be a follower. Okay, just because somebody is doing, I don't want to do it. I want to do it better than that person. The second question is, you also have to keep in mind, what will I do after PhD? A lot of time people say, I'm going to do a postdoc. A postdoc is not a destination. It is a place where you can get additional experience. So you have to decide whether you want to go to academics, industries, journalists, consultants, entrepreneurs. So this way you can build that profile, and we'll talk about it. Okay. In my talk, I divide into three parts. One is the during how to do your PhD research. It typically takes 4 to 6 years. In US, 5 years is most common. Um, some places you can join after master's and get earlier. Then, and this is also in time you can develop communication skills, communication in writing, like publications, proposals, and you can also get into presentations and outreach activities, leadership. We'll talk about it. And then these things will lay you a foundation for a successful career. So let's, okay, there is a raised hand. I cannot unmute you. So Professor Pathan, you want to talk, say something? I see a
Sir,
sign. Yeah.
sir, we are going to have a question answer session after your talk. So let us
Okay.
wait till then.
Okay. So there is somebody raised a hand. It came in. So, okay. Getting started with PhD. Okay. Uh, this is an article published in Chronicle of Higher Education a few years back. It says, welcome to graduate school. So in the US, it is referred, PhDs, masters are referred as graduate school. And once you get admitted, everybody gets excited. But the first and foremost pause to consider that in sciences and engineering, the graduate program, you are getting a special attention from the leaders in your chosen field. Not many professions provide this phase of directed reading, mentorship, and fostering of your creative, intellectual, and personal goals. Relish it, but don't get too comfortable, because graduate school is a stage, not the destination. So you have to make use of this graduate school stay to be a successful career. This is the 4 or 5 years you spend here is the most crucial part of your career, and how to make use of it. Okay, let's begin now. So you just got admitted into a PhD program, and now we want to start a research project. The first and important is the selection of research topic and advisor. And the reason is it will brand you when you graduate. If you join an organic chemistry professor, they will be called your organic chemist. If you join a spectroscopy lab, you will call it spectroscopist. If you join a computational chemist, they will call you theoretical chemist or a computational chemist. So depending upon the discipline that you chose will brand you after 5 years. So you have to think at this time, is this the one I want to be branded as? Is this my passion to be pursue future research? Because this is a very important step you are taking as you go. As you will see, it is not the one. Typically what people do is they join a graduate school, say chemistry, and then they do a postdoc with a biologist. And that way they can handle chemical biology problems. Same way you can be an experimentalist and join a theory to master both different disciplines. So there is a lot of opportunities later on if you want to divert your area. But again, keep in mind the research topic and the advisor you select. Once you join, you have to see what are the scientific issues that need to be tackled. You have to judge your strengths and weaknesses early on, prepare yourself for the long journey, and you have to challenge yourself. Okay, so there is always, they say, think outside the box. And this is a cartoon. And again, you will see in my talks a lot of cartoons just to entertain you. Uh, the cats, they're supposed to go into the box and do their job, but he's scaring that, saying, don't think outside the box. This is from a Nobel laureate, Jennifer Doudna, and she says that when you're selecting a research problem or working on a research, there are two types of things. One who dives very deeply into one topic, and the other, they sort of go to like a buffet and wants to try every different things. And the thing that they like, they stick to it and they do it. So this is, again, from a Nobel laureate telling how to pick a research problem and proceed further. Once you decide on a research problem, then you have to start with some simple experiments. It may be reproducing somebody's data they suggested, and brave yourself to do some quick tests. Don't have to get into all methodological, just mixing and doing it, just like when you're cooking, you add a little bit and then see what happens, kind of a thing. So these are the initial testing phase, see what works and what doesn't work. After these qualitative tests, things that work, it will give you. I always tell my student, I said, you have to try at least 10 crazy ideas. 9 of them will not work. And don't tell anybody that things didn't work, but at least one might work. Again, one might work. And if that works, you are in business. So unless you try those 10 different things, it is difficult to just do one and make sure that it always works. And remember to carry out blank and control experiments. Plot or tabulate the data. Repeat each experiment several times before drawing and discuss with your advisor colleagues. And throughout the education in Asia, it's not only India, it's Korea, China, Japan. The students are always told not to do mistakes. And this is one of the problem when it comes to research is you have to do mistakes to learn from it. So don't hesitate that in research, everything has to be right. So this is very important, different than what you studied so far in your exams and other things. So be brave to try this different. There is an article in Journal of Catalysis, the reference is there. It's called Burden of Disproof. In science, it is not just proving an hypothesis. You also have to put equal weight, or in fact more weight, on disproving all other possibilities. And so again, Louis Pasteur says, when you believe you have found an important scientific fact and are feverishly curious to publish it, constrain yourself for days, weeks, sometimes fight yourself, try to ruin that experiment and make sure the thing works. So this is how you have to disprove all other possibilities so that your argument stands out. So this way it works. Another most important thing is you have to be your own critic. You cannot wait for your advisor or somebody else in your department to come and tell you, okay, this is not the right way to do, or this is else to be done. Just like you get up in the morning, get dressed, and look into your mirror. How do I look today? Is my collar okay? Or how do my hair look? So you basically criticize yourself and make sure that you are right. The same thing with your research. You have to look from a a critic's point of view, and I call it as the W's, why I am doing this experiment. This is the most important. Again, if you don't know why you are doing that experiment, stop it right there, go back to your advisor and ask the questions, uh, what you need to do, why I'm doing this, what is the reason behind it. So that discussion lets you more into this one. What is the right approach to carry out the experiment? There are, same scientific issue can be tackled with different ones. I was watching a show on Julian Percy. He was one of the first African American scientists, chemist, who was involved in development of steroids. And in his time, there was no mass spec, no NMR. They were showing, it is on the PBS Nova movie. I suggest you strongly watch it. All they were doing was melting the samples and doing carbon nitrogen analysis. Based on that, they used to deduce a structure. Today we have mass spec, NMR, and we can get structures like anything. So these were some of the things. There are sometimes simple answers to find out, or simple techniques to find out the answers. So don't just say that, oh, I don't have this technique to find out. So there is always some other way you can do that approach. Again, you need to check out whether you're conducting the experiment properly, what are the expected results, do the results follow expected trend. So these are, again, the critique your own, and watch for unusual behavior or trends. The experiments are such, sometimes you expect something to happen, but it exactly happens uh, something different. And most of the great discoveries are accidental. Okay, you can go and check. So that's why you have to be watching some unusual behavior or trends that can give you. So in fact, in my own case, a lot of times some new phenomena we found was done by undergraduates. These are not even PhD students, because they came as a blank slate and they did some stupid mistake. But those mistakes turned out to be exciting new observation. Okay, so that's why you have to watch for it. What did I learn from this experiment? Can I draw important conclusions? So these are some other things to remember. Then comes the data analysis. You collect a lot of data. It is very important not only just to collect data. So in good old days, we didn't have computers. If you collect data, we used to take a graph paper and used to plot it. But now the computers softwares will spit out all the data analysis, everything, but you should be able to relate what that analysis means, how it is, and what is the significance of it. And sometimes people put fourth decimal, fifth decimal. You don't need it. Cut it down to maybe one decimal if that's what the error bar indicates. Okay. Many times data are presented in a table form. So discuss the results with the advisor and plan the next experiment. Questions to ask: is this the best way to present the data? How does the set of data compare to previous data? So these are some of the things you can follow and make the data. Another thing to worry about is the artifact. A lot of times the instrument setting or the impurities can lead to some wrong conclusions or wrong observations, wrong conclusions. Just like here, Rhino is trying to draw the pictures because he's seeing that horn in front of it. So he's putting on every picture on the wall. So you can see here everywhere there is a horn. But okay, so another thing I always suggest is the students should get together, go to a nice park or some beach or a mountaintop or somewhere, gather together and have a retreat, we call it. And then in this one, you have to come up with a new idea. And this is not for you to do, but somebody else to do in the lab, okay? Because a lot of things, okay, say I read this paper about it. How about you trying this work? It might fit in your project very well. So you can scan through these ones, and then there should not be any PowerPoints. You should take a easel board or a blackboard or whatever, and then write on the board and suggest this thing. Give it a try. It is really rejuvenating. Sometimes, the advisors or professors cannot generate all the time new ideas. The new ideas are generated by younger people. So be brave enough to suggest new areas, new things, how you can do in your lab. Okay, they always mention is think outside the box, and that means don't be in a comfort zone that you are currently what you are doing. You should be thinking something other than what you are doing, and that can sort of give you some breakthrough ideas. Okay, some useful tips. I use the word selfish because last time I told somebody it didn't go well. Selfish means look from your own perspective, okay, in this one. So you are working for your degree program. Don't even think that you are working for a professor or advisor and you are part of a thing. That is true. You are working under that one research program, but you also have to think from your own perspective. So how do I succeed very well? Set a weekly goal and evaluate the progress routinely. Minimize the time on the internet for non-scientific browsing. Just because you are sitting at your desk does not mean that your day was productive. So again, you have to have fun. I don't say that you have to work all 7 days in a week. Uh, you can take time off both Saturdays, Sundays, go and do something else. But during the day when you are in the lab, make sure you put at least 8 research hours. Again, you have to take, I'm sure all the students are very well in India taking this interest, but sometimes here I have to remind the students that they need to spend productive hours, because here you cannot force anybody to work more than 40 hours a week. Good record keeping. Again, it is everybody's obligation to create and maintain an accurate record of data. And this is very important to keep it, and try to keep in a binding book so that somebody else after you want to go through these books need to reproduce their data. So every scientific results must be carefully prepared, submitted to the peer review process, and scrutinized for publication. So sometime even in publication stage, it comes back, where is your data, how it was gathered. Okay, this concludes the first part where I talked to you about joining to a PhD program, how to do the experiments, and how to be creative, and how to be more critiquing your own data and coming up with the new ideas, those things. So now one part of your research is communication. And this is where it comes is writing a research publication. And many a time, this is not something that people will tell you how to write a paper or how to do these things, but it's sort of a passed on, like from generation to generation. But the fact is that it is changing dramatically. And what was valid 10 years back, it has changed now. So you have to adapt to the change. And that's what I'm going to talk to you in this part. Okay, first of all, what is scientific publication? This is from a National Academy Press in the US on being scientist. It says that the object of research is to extend human knowledge beyond what is already known. And an individual knowledge enters the domain of science only after it is presented to others in such a fashion that they can independently judge its validity. So what it is telling is, whenever you are doing research, make sure your goal is to extend the knowledge beyond what is already known. If someone has already done with a compound ABC and draw a conclusion, there is no need to just vary one of the C into D and draw a similar conclusion. Then you are not extending the knowledge. So you have to go and beyond that ABC and see how can I make it more useful to the humanity. This is a quote from a 2004 paper by George Whiteshire, and he says that paper is an organized description of hypotheses, data, and conclusions. And he says that if you research does not generate papers, it might just as well not have been done. So that's why the publication is very important. But that is 2004. What is in 2021? If your um, paper does not generate citations, it might just as well not have been done. That means that if nobody reads your paper, what is the purpose of spending all this research and other things? So this is where the changes are happening now. Because any promotions or anywhere goes, okay, you have written a paper, but did anybody care about that paper? So that is a question coming. So this is again another cartoon, okay? So you can just take a laugh at it. In 1990s, you used to just publish papers, feel happy about it. Then came publish or perish. Then came publish in high impact journals or perish. Now publish frequently in high impact journals and maybe you won't perish. You can see the pressure, how it is coming for publishing in academia. Okay, that is just a cartoon. What is publishable? Journals like to publish papers that are going to be widely read and useful to the reader. And they have to be original and significant findings. So most of the time, all the journals are getting so many papers. So they are now editorially screened. One or two editors see it and says, whether does it fit the scope of the journal? Does our readers will read this paper? That's the first thing all the editors ask. So you have to make sure that whenever you write a paper, select the right journal, not based on the impact factor, but on the scope of the journal. Okay, and then this is the most important thing. It has to be well organized and well written. So with a clear statement regarding how the findings relate to the advance of understanding. Papers that are concise and yet complete in their presentation and findings. Okay, always, if you're a new student, you always ask the question, when am I ready to write a manuscript? The first question, ask yourself, do my data tell a story or are they merely a piece of information? Because as a kid or anybody you take it, we always like to hear a story. So same way, this should be a scientific story, okay? So it should be a introduction and then some kind of a progress and then some conclusions. So trying to tell a story that comes on. Do the results I achieved move the state of the knowledge for the field forward? Is the information I've collected relevant to others? Okay, and finally, you have to make sure that you are explaining your results in a way that everybody can understand. Okay, so this is a thing, not the only 4 people in your field that can understand. As I said earlier, it's winter here and we get a lot of snow. In fact, last night, entire US has got a lot of snow, even in Texas where they hardly see snow. Even the traffic has stopped because they don't have any snow clearance. So sometimes we get this kind of a blizzard, and when you start writing a manuscript, it looks like you are clearing up the snow with a huge monumental task, right? So it need not be that way. And what you have to do is practice, practice, practice. Learn from others. Okay? So what I'm saying is you don't run a marathon saying that I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow. You start practicing it 3 months, 4 months, 6 months before you join a marathon. Same way when writing a paper, you have to start very early on having a writing practice. With the age of all the computers and things, we like to read more, text more, those kind of things. But sitting in front of a desk, spend half an hour, not much, every day. Make it a habit to write regarding your experiment, regarding your results. Or if you read a paper, note down those highlights of that paper. This will help you in writing your introduction if you write every paper that you read. And also, you are not afraid of writing. You don't need to write complex sentences. You can write very simple sentences, okay? So I carried out this experiment using XYZ spectrophotometer. I prepared samples of A, B, C, D. So write simple sentences first, okay? Put together in a order so they can understand. In fact, this is an article in Science, one of the uh, person wrote, I noticed a few senior colleagues who published with impressive regularity and always had a paper in the works. When I asked them what their secret was, I found that they prioritized doing small amounts of focused writing every day. I have since developed my own version of this approach. I call it the 1 hour workday. Okay, so all of you who are listening, if you want to succeed, make it a habit of writing. All the senior people, they write something or the other every day, believe me. So they are in it. But for you to develop that habit is very important. Okay. Okay. So now leaving aside, you have done the experiments, you have got all the data, and now you are ready to write a paper, assuming everything is done. So how do you write a paper, right? So you have put all the data on your table. Now you identify 2 or 3 important findings emerging from your experiments. Okay, this is important. And these findings should not include statements like carried out, demonstrated, investigated, elucidated. Uh, no, those are what you did. Your findings are such that the catalyst I prepared shows selectivity towards oxidation of something, or the compound you have made has this important property. So make sure those findings stand out, just 2 or 3, and include them in the abstract. No experimental details like rate constants or where it absorbs or where NMR peaks are or where crystallographic information. No, these are general statements about your findings that should be in the abstract. So once you have those identified, your entire paper will be based to support those statements in your abstract. So you need to compose figures. What kind of figures I need to support those statements? Schemes are very important. Illustration that diverts and focuses this one. Then discuss the results. So you can do it and note the readership of the journal that you are considering to publish your work. So this is very important because you have to have them in your mind when you are writing a paper. And typically don't put too many figures. I see nowadays people are putting 12, 16, 20 small panels in one figure. They are very difficult to read and does not convey the significance of your results. If you read our papers, there may be 2 or 3 panels maximum in each figure, and every data and every text should be readable and explained very well in the caption. Another one to do is to know the focus of your paper. And this is, again, it's a quote, it takes a wise man to know whether he has found a rope or lost a mule. It's the same set of data, what you want to focus on, whether you want to write a story on the rope or you want a story on the lost mule. So establish the focus of your research paper before you engage in writing. Start with a working title. Check and revise after you complete writing. Okay, so it can be revised. Just have a working title so that you know what that focus is. What draws your attention first while browsing a scientific journal? All of you, if you are reading a paper, what is that first thing gets your attention? It's a title. And in fact, in newspapers and magazines, you can see the same news is spun with different titles, depending upon whether you are pro-government or anti-government. The same news is given, the headline changes, right? Because they know their readers and they want to engage their readers. Okay, so if you want to know how do articles become most read, again, this is my opinion. You take any journal, there are the most read articles. They're because of the title, because the title was so attractive, so people clicked on it. And that became a most read. So the article may not good, I don't know, but there is no correlation between most read and most cited articles. But the titles always draws the best attention of the editors, reviewers, and authors. So don't make it too long. Keep it as short as possible. And don't use the word like novel, most efficient, green, and all those things. those are not anymore in fashion. So that does not attract anybody. So here is another one, abstract. Keep it short and effective. There is no need to write a big abstract. It could be just 5 or 6 sentences. Include major findings. Remember that I told you earlier on that findings that you come up from your data, do it. Be creative in generating curiosity. You have to tell it. Try to avoid, in this study we have investigated, you have wasted that 6 words. We know that that's what you did in this thing. And here is sort of a anatomy of the abstract. Purpose and problem statement. That first sentence should tell you what is motivating, what is it about, what scientific issue it is telling. Then 3 or 4 sentences about your methodology and major finding. And then one last sentence saying, why should anybody care about this work? Give an application where this might work or how it will address the future course of the research. That is it. If you see here, there is no data, numbers, nothing. Very simple. All the general reader should be able to read and understand the abstract, because title, abstract, and figures are seen by everybody, whoever it checks, whether it's the editors, reviewers, or the readers later on. They go through it. And once you get impressed with these things, they go through your paper carefully. Another one is TOC graphics, table of content graphics. This is something that came up probably in the last 10, 15 years. And again, this is not the one initiated by senior people. This is done by the younger generation. They say our time is too short. Tell us the theme of your paper in just one figure, right? Take, for example, the top one. In this one, by looking at it, you can tell what this paper is about. There's a carbon support, platinum, and the ionic liquid, they carbonize it and platinum, and now the electron transport is better, right? So you know what this is about. Same way, this one is about water electrolysis. So these are simple and informative. And if you don't take care of, and this is what between Einstein and Charlie Chaplin, they were talking about. Einstein says is, what I admire you about your art is universality. You don't say a word, yet the world understands you. And the Chaplin says, well, you are still greater. Like nobody understands what you say, but they still admire you. So what you have, a TOC graphics should be Charlie Chaplin. Okay. Charlie Chaplin, when he expresses, you know what he's saying, right? Same way your TOC graphics should be expressive in terms of what that theme is about. These are again published TOC graphics. I put the references. Does this impress you? Does it tell you what this is about? The answer is no. It's too much text, too much crowded thing. So don't waste that opportunity. And it's a good way to make your paper effective. So then comes which journal to submit, right? You need to match the scope of your work with that of a journal. Understand in which field and subfield your findings will have the greatest impact. You want people to read your paper. As I mentioned, that's the way. It is not the impact factor of the journal. The more people you read, the more attention you get. I'll just give you the same paper. Again, I don't know whether it's published or not, so I got it somewhere. Phenanthralene covalent organic framework electrodes for high performance zinc ion super capacitor, the capacitor battery. So in this one, the first part is this covalent organic framework. So if you are submitting for a material journal, this is first part emphasizes that it is material based. Same work, now you change it to high performance zinc ion supercapacitor. So that means you are focusing on now the capacitor battery that you have. That means it is good for energy journal. So you can see here the same title can be turned around to emphasize the focus of the journal. So this is what that first gets attention. in doing it. So the title becomes very important. The abstract becomes important. They should match the scope of your journal. Okay, so I could have given you another half an hour on how to do it, maybe another time, but let me go to the quick checklist before submission of a paper. Is the title appealing to broad readership? Don't write like 3 sentences title, okay? That it becomes boring. Try to keep it short. As I said earlier, go to the journal's most read articles. Those titles will tell you how they can be more effective. Have significant findings been identified in the abstract? Does introduction provide motivation for the study? And I did not go into detail. The figures are the key to the success of going through a publication. Don't try to cram it. See whether the units that you presented are right. You have explained in the caption everything correctly. Do the discussion of results and cited references fall within the scope of the journal. Make sure that you have at least a couple of references cited of that journal in which you are submitting, or at least in the discipline. The reason is that tells you the scope. So one of the things I always say is which journal to submit is go and look into your references section and see, that will tell you which journal it will fit better. Proper acknowledgements, your funding agencies, people who helped, or those kind of things. And finally, everyone has to see your final draft before submission. Okay, so now sometimes it's not all that good news that, in fact, this may be more of a common thing to get rejected. And read the editorial comments and discuss with advisors, students, collaborators, how you can make this study stronger. Do not just turn around and submit the paper to another journal. And a lot of times people send me a draft of their paper. What do you think about whether it fits into your ACS energy letter? So I tell them, if it is yes, fits well. If it is there, what are the deficiencies and what needs to be done? If it is not in the scope, I say, okay, send it to this materials journal or another journal, because that's where this emphasis is. So sometimes you can communicate with your editor of the journal and ask them their opinion, which is fine. Most of them will respond you back in some kind of a thing. So carry out additional experiments to improve the quality of scientific discussions. And rejected papers can be resubmitted. We do reconsider. If you address all the comments, we can reconsider. It is not reject means it is not the end of the story. So a lot of times people fight back, and you need to fight back in the reviewer. I remember, my second or third paper from Notre Dame, I submitted to Langmuir, and the reviewers had sort of mixed comments, and I didn't know what to do. And I called the editor at that time, Arthur Adamson. He was one of the well-known scientists, both in surface chemistry and inorganic chemistry. He has got 2 well-known textbooks. And he answered the phone. He says, if I were you, I will fight with the referee and prove that you are right. And that's what I did, and the paper got published. So never feel that reviewers are always right or editors are right. So if you think you are right, fight it out. Now, what to avoid? Data without scientific discussion, application of data, or literature review. Routine synthesis and characterization of nanomaterials. Okay, this is very common. Easy to get publication in some journals, but not in the major journals. They need to see a real advance in this one. Try to avoid novel, first time, one-part synthesis, facile, and other things. Names of fruits, flowers, because that's not the focus of science. You should present what is the major finding that represents in this work. Again, this is an article, you may want to note it down, published earlier. It has 20 papers with the editorials written by different editors, and tells you right from the title, TOC graphics and captions and everything. There are different editorials. In fact, if you have a journal club or something, you can discuss each editorial and then ask students to come up with examples of that. Believe me, if you do some exercise based on this one, you will be much more prepared to do this one. And it is important to realize that a well-composed manuscript with a compelling scientific story that can appeal to the journal readership sees a high rate of acceptance. Okay, so now you graduated. These are some of the students who graduated, working hard for 5 years. Now what? Okay, now the reality, right? So this is like a dog crossing now the street. Nobody is holding his leash, right? So nobody is holding your hand when you finish your PhD and get out. You are on your own. So this is where your thing comes, that you have to be prepared to be on your own and be a scientist or a consultant or an expert, whatever it is. So that 4 or 5 years is a very valuable time to prepare for the day that you can be on your own. Okay. So you cannot rely on anything, uh, anybody else. You are on your own. So you just defend your thesis successfully, and how will you secure the position that could lead you to the established career? The excitement of completing a major professional degree quickly transitioned to a concern of practical reality. But opportunity exists in academia, national labs, institutes, industries, journalism, and consulting is stand out so that potential employers give serious consideration. So this is the key to stand out. I wrote an article earlier called Looking Beyond the PhD. And again, to highlight that what is required during your PhD, it is not just the research or publishing papers. It is also the time you can build different things, the writing skills, leadership qualities. You can organize something like a scientific club, a journal club, or a small conferences, workshops, uh, outreach activities, that one. If you are interested in industries, just take 3 months off in summer, which do it people often, is go and work in an industry as an intern. They will like it, and you will see what goes on in industry. It's totally different. So this is another thing. So make your career choice early. So when you are in your PhD program, you have to decide what I want to do and prepare yourself for this one. If you are interested in academic teaching, colleges, volunteer yourself to teach some undergraduate tutorials, labs, classes, those things. Tell your professor, can I give one of a guest lecture in one of the classes? So this way, you will know how to be a good teacher. Industrial positions, again, it said you can take an internship. Technical position, there are a lot of instrumental development, maintenance, and those kind of things people like to do. Sometimes a lot of people like to work with the instruments, and in fact, most of the spectroscopists work with the laser industries, those things. Marketing sales force, they need it. Scientific writers, media, this is becoming a major thing. Everybody, if you develop a good writing skills, good graphic designs, you are the most needed person, and people will come to you. So now every organization has some scientific writers, because they have to highlight that research coming out from that one to the public media. You'll see a lot of blogs and every people writing. Consulting services, entrepreneurship. You can start your own research. Think that if you've got an idea product, there may be possibility of just starting your own thing. So these different choices you have, or maybe more than this, but I listed only few. But you have to make the choice early on and see what it takes to get that job and be successful. Develop additional skills during your PhD. Good writing skills, as I told earlier, it's a must. It doesn't matter how great scientist you are. If you do not have a good writing skills, nobody else will write it for you. As a result, you are practically zero. You have to start writing proposal writing. Just volunteer. There may be some fellowships available for you. So write short 1-page, 2-page proposal. Nowadays, if you're applying for postdoc, it is very common that people ask you, could you please tell me what you are going to work on if you come to my lab? So this is, if you have that one ready, better than the 10 other people who are applying. A good communication skill, know your audience, is focusing on the younger audience, right? I cannot give the same talk to a senior successful people who are out there. Okay, 7 is the number one. Comfort, you need to feel comfortable with the people around. Learn to do things alone and to trust that everything will be okay. Perception. Again, how you present yourself is a very important thing, and this is how people perceive you. Again, you don't have to speak too much, but show that confidence and be authoritative in things you know. And don't jump into things where you don't know. Just if you don't know, just say, I don't know, I'm not familiar with it. I'll go back and check on it. Authority, speak and present in a way that you are making others feel like they are your intellectual equal. The three S's: stay informed, stay educated, and stay connected. Okay. The standing out, you should stand out, not like this. Okay. When you will be creative, peak according to science. Again, I'm telling you why. Again, we had a discussion with Dr. Amlanekar earlier, um, that I feel that we are almost end of the rope. And although we will be contributing, but we cannot be the minds of younger generation. This is a study that was done with painters, composers, and Nobel Prize authors. What they found is the most creativity that comes is in the age group of, say, between 25 to say 45. Okay, so that is the time your mind is so active. You can make a difference by thinking. So you have to think outside the box. You have to be brave enough to generate new ideas. And see, like I am in the end of this thing, so I don't generate any new ideas. Okay, so I'm encouraging you that you are the leaders of future. Okay, so be prepared and get ready for that. So this is your time to think and contribute to the science. So again, this is another thing to remember is the ethics of science, which I didn't talk about. This is another day, another talk. But three things to remember is an obligation to honor the trust that your colleagues place in you. Because when you hire for a PhD or a job or anything, people trust you. So remember that trust. You're also responsible. You have an obligation to yourself. Since kindergarten, you have put a very hard work to come to this stage. So don't blow it up doing some, not in science, you will see there are a lot of people, you have to watch retraction watch, the blog. It will tell you how papers are retracted because of various reasons, like a fraudulent or copying, plagiarism, the various reasons, but you have to have an obligation to yourself. And finally, you have an obligation to serve the public. I cannot go and say that, oh, I discovered a drug for cancer cure. The public gets excited. I see a lot of times people get batteries or something. Oh, made a fast. Don't overstate your findings. Be conservative because publics are hungry for new things. So in summary, I'm ending my talk. You have to have the courage to believe in you and and solve important problems. Uh, that's the only time you can solve it. You have to, if you think you can't, almost surely you are not going to. Look for the positive side of things instead of the negative. So be optimistic. It's going to happen. Okay. You have to be courageous to make it happen. You need the drive and commitment. You need to develop. You need academic honesty and ethics. So I didn't talk about it, but that's very important. And finally, you have to set early on your career goals. That's it. And don't ever give up. You will encounter odds, but don't ever give up. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Prashant. Probably you can see some question here, the Q&A. Can you see?
If someone can read me, it will be better.
I think Dr. Google, I think research should not be carried out forcefully. It should be from your heart. But nowadays, some approach to look towards research is changing. What do you think about this? Probably you have answered this in your presentation.
Again, if you think throughout my talk, that's what I said is you have to believe in yourself and be courageous to think something different than others. And the forcefully is more of a peer pressure to here the students who do PhD, if they have like, and they know everything.
I think your video has some problem. Can you hear Dr. Chaskar? Can you hear?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh, you only. Dr. Kamath have a little problem, I think.
I think Professor Kamath has some
Yeah.
connectivity issue.
Oh, okay. Let me. Hello. Hello.
I can read.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
I can.
Can you hear me now? I just
Yes,
took.
sir.
Yeah. I can.
Okay. Yeah. So you heard during my talk was okay, right?
Yeah. That was not a problem. Only last few
Okay.
was a problem.
Okay. So yeah, this one I said the publication.
I think again there is a problem.
Yeah, maybe some.
Comes more in Asian countries with the student. Hello? Yeah. I see the signal now.
That is okay.
Okay. I think from my side it's okay.
Yeah.
And students should not feel pressure to write papers. If you have good 3 or 4 papers that represent your work and your skills, that should be sufficient. I always say, if you're a 10th author in a 15 author papers, I don't know what your contribution is. The goal is to have at least 3 to 4 papers that comes in.
Yeah.
If there is no postdoc or any senior in the lab, and sometimes even the supervisor is not helping in the research direction, then how to drive the research further without the support for guidance? So again, that's your choice. You should have checked this one before you join that lab. If the advisor is not willing to do it, you should not be joining that advisor. So I suggest you to change the lab or group.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can learn by yourself talking to others too. For getting a position in academics or industry after completion of a PhD degree, what is the most important university name is important for publication in good journals or high impact factor. So again, this is the impact factor business is something not right because only 10% of the papers carry the journal impact factor. More than half of the paper, take any journal. 60, I've done it a few journals analysis. 65% of the papers in majority of the journals are below the impact of the journal. So that means they don't get citations. Most journals even have 5 to 10% with no citations. So how do you explain this? Would you like to publish in a high impact factor with no citations, or with a lower impact factor, with a more citation. People recognize you after reading your work, not because you publish in a high impact journal. So throughout my career, I've been publishing in a journal that's appropriate. For example, in Journal of Physical Chemistry, you can check it out. I published about 170 papers. The average citation is over 100. That means I feel very good that people read it and do it. Again, this is something administrators are doing, and a lot of us are trying to emphasize that the impact factor is not the right criteria to judge the merit of a research or a researcher. So this should be somehow, you should talk to your administrators and get it out. And I hear that some of the companies in India, again, I may be wrong, that they take the papers and the impact factor and average it out, which is not right. This is not right. The impact factor does not reflect the quality of research. One needs to change this. Any other questions?
I have one question. What is your opinion about the open access journals by the well-known publication houses like Nature and
Yeah,
Rollins?
Again, this was started what they call Plan S in Europe. They wanted to get everybody free, basically free to read, kind of a thing. Like in good old days, if we didn't have, our library didn't have access to a journal, we wrote to the author, and the author sent us a reprint. Today also, if you send an email, they will send you a reprint. So there are, that is based on a subscription model, because libraries used to subscribe. And before I go, you can read the latest issue of ACS Energy Letters. I wrote an article explaining the scenes behind the publication, how the subscription journals changed into a web-based platform. And previously, we used to go to the library and uh, search for journals. Today, we search through a computer, which publishers are providing you that one. So, but in the subscription journal, people who have access to subscribed journals can only read the papers. Others couldn't. So the open access came that everyone should be able to read, and which is a good thing, but there is a cost associated with every publication. So who is going to bear the cost? Typically, in a subscription model, it is the readers paid the cost. Your libraries paid the subscriptions, where authors could publish it free. In an open access journals, the cost is borne by the reader or their institution. So as a result, the paywall comes before the author. So in the Plan S in Europe, it's mandated in some funding agencies. The European Research Council has backed out, but other agencies are still demanding that all papers they publish should be open access. As a result, they pay the fees, typically ranging anywhere from 1,000 to the Nature has started now $9,000 or $10,000 for a paper to make it open access. Again, either way, somebody has to pay money. Now the question is, for countries like India, for many researchers, open access is not. Even for me, okay, I'm not. I don't have my funding to support an open access journal. So it's only if when your funding agency allows you to do it, then you can do that open access. That means more people will be reading. There is also the other aspect of it, which is also coming in the open access journals, is there are what they call as a predatory journals, which means especially there are a lot of outfits in India also and other places where they will have a name very similar to a popular name, and people sometimes accidentally put it, and they will take whatever $1,000, or even in India 500 rupees and 1,000 rupees, they will publish a paper, and in fact they will publish within 8 days paper. So there is a way of making money people have found doing it. So how do you police with a good publication from a predatory publication? That is also becoming a challenge. So all publishers are now opening up open access journals, because one of the plans requires that the journal should be exclusively open access and not a hybrid journal.
Yeah.
There is a belief that the publication get accepted due to the name and fame of the authors and their affiliation. Is it true? Professor Vidya Usari. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of times if you write a paper following somebody else's footstep that was done 5 years back, it doesn't stand out to the modern times. You have to have a right title, a right abstract, good figures, and a nice story that shows you in advance. Believe me, people from India publish in all excellent journals. Okay, in ACS journals, I can tell you most of the journals publish about 5 to 8% of the papers, including ACS Energy Letters. We track it. So how come these people are able to publish and not others? I think talking to these people, or if you have any problem, you can send me your paper. I can tell you what it requires to publish in a good journal. Again, if it is in my field, I can do it. But otherwise, you have to find out somebody who has been regularly publishing, take their feedback, and they can tell you what it requires, because it's really a flood of papers coming in, and it needs to stand out among that pile. And doing some good figures, good abstract, good title can make it stand out in the initial run.
So please elaborate academic honesty and ethics.
Okay, that is entirely another talk. So another time I can give you because again, as I mentioned, I briefly mentioned last time that there are 3 obligations: one to your people who hired you, another one to yourself, and another to society. Again, someone was mentioning about earlier memorizing, and that has resulted into a lot of copy and pasting, because I know that looking at when I go, my children of cousins or nieces, they are in like lower grade. The answers have to be exactly what teacher told you. If you change few words or write in a different way, you get penalized. So this should not be the case. So that sort of mentality of writing, memorizing, or copying and pasting gets carried over. And in fact, in the internet world, a lot of times, I might copy something and paste it on my Twitter account or Facebook or something. There it is fine in a social one, as long as you give credit. Even in paper, same thing is you have to give credit if you are borrowing from somewhere. So again, as I said, this is, I can give another talk another time, maybe next year.
Okay. Next, maybe we'll take 1 or 2 more questions. So what are the major differences between doing a PhD abroad versus doing it in India?
Okay, I can tell you, I did my PhD in India, and the only thing that comes to me is if you are doing the right advisor, right problem, I don't see any difference between right now. As I seeing, it's a flat playing field now. It's across the world, because you have the same techniques, same kind of availability of resources exist all over the world. The question comes is, when you become after PhD, how you are going to stand out and become a successful person in this one. There are many people like me. I'm not the only one who got PhD and here. And the one that is different here is that tells you becoming more independent scientist, that trains you. So that kind of a training is needed again, I may be wrong, but in many of the institutes and universities, if they can focus on giving some independence to students and trying to encourage them to become more independent scientists once they become, rather than just publishing papers, that could help them quite a bit.
Okay. I think last question is one more question, sir. Pursuing a PhD from a low-ranking university will open the career path in academics or in industry because everyone is not getting PhD position in a good ranking university. So,
Yeah, this. I don't like to say anything as low ranking or high ranking because the ranking comes from various different things. Even in the US, if you see, uh, at one end you have very high ranked, and then if you see Notre Dame or some other university, we look, somewhere around 40, 50. And when students get admissions, what they do is they see the ranking. Okay, this is number 49 and I got number 50, so I will go with the 49. No, that should not be the case. As I said in the beginning, you should focus on what you want to do after your PhD. So which is the field that I want? Which is the university that fits my ranking better? So because here in the US also, every university is not in um, uh, every field. They are great. So they are specialized in certain ones. The ranking and everything comes from aware public perceptions and how they publicize their things and other things. So you can be in any university as long as your contributions that you make stand out. You are standing out in front of them. So you have to develop that skills. As I said in the beginning, you have to see from your own perspective, be courageous. There are a lot of people who work in the small university, and this one, I will tell you my own thing. I graduated from Karnataka University in Dharwad. I applied for master's degree. They did not give me my master's degree. That's the reason then I moved to Mumbai, and then I got in Bombay University master's degree admission. So sometimes these things do happen for good. Uh, so again, you have to be more challenging and see from your perspective what works best. There is one mail from Neha Hatkekar. Good evening. I have doubt regarding how to follow research papers as productive as possible to clear my basic concept as well as advanced concept. How to select research topic? Again, that you have to read some papers and see what interests to you, and talk to the people, like before you join an advisor. They should be able to tell you what they do and do it. So here, like for example, right now, this week we have a new graduate students recruiting week, and they are talking to all these different professors, and they tell you what they do and what their research focus is. So, and these students probably have like 5, 6 different schools admissions. So based on these discussions, they make a decision which university to join. And that kind of a thing should be put in India, rather than just blindly joining a university and a researcher. So the student should have the option to select.
I think Dr. Parke, probably can you read just the chat messages before we proceed further?
Okay, sir.
Chat messages.
Sir, actually, there are many chat messages. Just I will pick up a few.
Yeah, just you tell me a few.
Yeah.
I'll give a very short
It-
answer. Okay?
No, there are not questions in
Comments, just
there are just comments saying that it
compliments.
was a wonderful talk and very encouraging and informative sessions. And people have thanked you for answering their questions. And people have said that it was a nice session. And we have good, very good and informative session again. So there are good messages, good response that we have. And truly, sir, it was really enlightening to listen to what you had to say. Amarnerkar sir, may I now request Manohar Chaskar sir to...
Yeah, formally
Yes.
propose vote of thanks.
Yes. Dr. Chaskar.
Yes. Yeah. Good evening and good morning. Myself, Dr. Chaskar, Dean Science and Technology, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Honorable Professor Prashant Kamath, respected our dynamic Vice Chancellor, Professor Nitin Karmalkar, Professor Aditya Abhankar, Head of Department, Technology, Emeritus Professor Dinesh Ammanerkar, sir, our most valuable invited guests, teachers, and students. It is my privilege to offer thanks of this occasion. I want to thank the chief guest, Professor Prashant Kamath, who gave his vital time for his busy schedule to grace this webinar and express his views on how to coming up with new idea and do research. Second, extend the knowledge, what is already know. And third one, how to write and publish a research paper. And thanks to Professor Nitin Karmalkar, Vice Chancellor, Savitribai Phule Pune University, his able guidance has always encouraged us. I thank to him for his kindness, his interest, and continued support. My heartfelt thanks to Head of Departments, Professor Aditya Abhankar and Professor Dinesh Ammanerkar for their valuable contribution, guidance, and encouragement in all our efforts. I thanks to Professor Anuja Fodke. She made all necessary arrangements for success this Bharatiya Abhimaan webinar series first lecture. Last but not least, I thanks to professors, teachers, my friends, and students for attending this webinar. Once again, thanks on behalf of Savitribai Phule University. Thank you very much.
Professor Prashant, you have to
Yeah.
promise us offline seminar once the COVID situation in India gets
Yeah.
controlled by vaccine made in India. Probably you can come
Sure,
here,
sure.
spend some
Sure,
time.
sure. I think by December, I think the travel will, I think, start by.
Then you promise
We will,
that you will
Yeah,
give
sure, sure. I will.
offline
I will
seminar.
come.
That
we
gives
will invite, sir. We will invite Professor Kamath, sir, to India.
Yeah, sure,
And
sure. I will.
various
I
colleagues-
always I used to come 2-3 times a year. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah.
it's
Thank you, sir.
yeah. Okay, I'll
Thanks
see you
a lot,
then.
Dr.
Yeah.
Aditya.
A big thank you, sir. A big thank you. It was truly enlightening. Truly appreciate it. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe sometime.
Absolutely. We look forward to more engagement. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
And
Thank
Aditya, this will be available on YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
And question answers also will be available.
Yes.
Chats also will be available.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for all the arrangement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
thanks, Prashant.
Yeah, I will leave the meeting now. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ammanerkar, sir, Aditya, sir, and Phadke, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Chaskar, for all your support. Aditya and Dr. Phadke, madam, we troubled her quite a lot on a variety of accounts.
And
No,
all-
sir, not at all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so I will leave
Okay,
now.
ma'am.
Will it be
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Yes.